we now have Claudia and her guide dog Aztec to come and give a bit of a speech.
What a wonderful reason to be gathered here today to say thank you to all of you amazing volunteers. I hope you guys have been thanked many, many times already, but I'm here to reiterate it and to talk about just what an enormous difference your contributions make in the lives of people like myself who live with vision loss and are lucky enough to experience the overwhelming support of a guide dog like mine, this Aztec here. Ezzy, sit. Stop being naughty. Personally, I am legally blind, have severe low vision and partially sighted. However you want to describe it, I can't see very much, and it's not something that can simply be fixed with a pair of glasses. Although this isn't new to me, I was diagnosed with bilateral retinoblastoma, a form of eye cancer, when I was just 8 weeks old, and within 2 days of my diagnosis, my right eye had been removed and every effort was being made to save my left eye. To cut a very long story short, I ended up receiving treatment from a specialist in Florida who was able to save the eye and as much vision as possible, which turns out to not be much, but I couldn't be more grateful to at least have something. This certainly created some challenges for me as I grew up. However, I also created some for myself. I was always covered in scrapes and bruises as I refused to use a white cane and instead opted for the she'll be right approach. I wasn't going to be left behind while my friends went on playing at lunchtime or during reading time in class, so I adapted as much as I could and got on with the business of being a kid. I always knew I wanted a guide dog though. I'm an animal lover and I've always felt that if I have to admit to my blindness at some point, at least a guide dog is more positively perceived than a white cane, or at least that's how I saw it. In fact, while I was still at primary school, I wrote a 3-minute speech about the training of a guide dog and why I wanted one. What a nerd, I know. So once I'd reached intermediate, I thought I'd grown up enough, it was time to apply. I sent off an email to a contact and eagerly awaited their response. They were very supportive to their credit, but discussed why this might not be quite the right timing. So with this information and a rather large nudge from my parents to wait a little longer, I put the application on the back burner. However, by the time I came to my final years at high school, I didn't have quite the same confidence I'd once had about walking around without being able to see the floor, and realised that perhaps in preparation for university, a revisit of the old guide dog application might be a good idea. I think the best way to describe my 2.5-year wait is turbulent. I remember getting the phone calls 3 or 4 times a year to say that there was a matching meeting coming up. I would get my hopes up, and then about a week later, my GDMI would ring and say that sadly there was no match for me. So come January 2021, when my GDMI rang, I'll be honest, it was lovely to have a chat. I didn't have much hope. I told the whole family that, who were rather invested, that they shouldn't expect any news. How wrong I was. My GDMI rang and she sounded rather perky. I didn't want to read into it though. And then she said the words, "I think I found a match for you." Well, I don't think I heard the rest of that conversation. I was shocked. I rang my mum and she didn't believe me. I'd played tricks on her too many times before. I rang my dad and he laughed. And then I rang my sister and she started crying in the middle of her office. What a bunch. Aztec, it was an absolute whirlwind of about 2 days from then to when Aztec arrived. I was completely unprepared for the wiggly-bummed, over-eager little ball of delight that came through the front door. We spent our entire first weekend together walking laps of the block, playing tug of war and getting her settled in. We then started training on a Tuesday as it was a long weekend. I'm used to trusting a horse to take me in the right direction, but that's within a fenced area and I know how to bail if need be. Trusting a dog to take me in the right direction out in the big wide world is an entirely different feeling. Despite this, I think Azzy and I grew a strong bond very quickly, and I remember coming home towards the end of training and telling Mum I'd actually walked with my eyes closed as the sun was too bright and painful, and I trusted Az to find the way. As we learnt the tricks of us being a team, I started to discover a few things too. I've always known I can't see properly. Of course I can't. But I started to understand just how blind I am. As he would pick up on things I had absolutely no clue about. I also found that I wasn't in as much pain as usual, and realised that I had been tensing my jaw and fists when out and about, but had started to relax now that Azzy was by my side. She brought back a confidence I don't remember having since being a carefree kid, and soon enough we were striding off into my final year of university. We travelled from the North Shore all the way to Manukau on a regular basis, a massive undertaking that I never would have dreamed of attempting prior to having Aztec. Now, Azzy accompanies me to my full-time job, navigating the chaos of Auckland CBD, public transport and busy office environments. She has been on every type of transport you can imagine, joining my family and I when we flew down to Queenstown for a holiday, using the trains in our peak hour commute, and helping me figure out how to find the ferry to Waiheke Island. Our routine destinations are etched into the pads of her paws. She catches on to where we are going, and that is it. She says, "This way, Mum," and we're off. There's the odd look to me to make sure I think she's still on the right track, but otherwise it's tails wagging, "I got this." We've had our challenges though. Aztec has opened up my world, but there are still a lot of silly people who like to close doors on us. We've been denied access to Ubers, and when not denied, it is often a lengthy discussion before they let us in. I've also been questioned by multiple intercity bus drivers on our regular trips out of Auckland. Although these situations are unpleasant, I've learnt to deal with them, and I also see them as a wonderful opportunity to educate people as well. Azzy is integral to me getting on with my daily life. Being blind can be a rather large elephant in the room, but Aztec draws people in. She starts conversations and breaks the ice so that socialising can become less daunting. She is not just a guide, she is a protector, a companion, a supporter. Now nearly 2 years since we teamed up, Azzy takes on her job with style and ease, and I couldn't imagine it any other way. I was recently talking to a friend who also happens to be a guide dog handler, and she was telling me how, as a child, she used to save up her money so that one day she could afford to buy herself a guide dog. She knew how much they cost to train, but still desperately wanted one. Then she learned about the immense number of man-hours that go into training each guide dog. There is a quantifiable amount of money that will be spent to create a life-changing animal like Aztec. But beyond that is the hours that you volunteers put in, and without these hours, the entire operation would not be possible. Thanks to you, my area of independence has expanded from the few kilometres surrounding my house that I know inside and out to a far larger area, even if that is completely new to me. There are many people, much like myself, who would say the same thing too. I would not be able to work in the healthcare sector, travel to my friends' houses out of town, or simply confidently catch the bus to our local supermarket like I do, if it wasn't for the time that you give to guide dogs like Aztec. This is just my story, but on behalf of the wider guide dogs community, I'd like to say the sincerest thank you. You truly change lives.
Thank you, Claudia. That was an amazing story, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us. I think it really sums up, what our volunteers do for guide dogs. So thank you very, very much. I've also got a wee bunch of flowers that I'd like to give to Claudia for coming along and sharing her story. I'll bring them to you if you like. Thank you. We're going to finish up with some wine and some cheese. Have a bit of a nibble, a little drink, and feel free to have a chat. Thank you very much.
We had an amber, it didn't make it.
No, now I've got Fleur, so
yes.
Have you still got Claudia?
Yeah.
She's still super young.
No, it's actually
So she's